Welcome back then folks to the second build of day 4 in pack number 16 of special projects. This one I know more than a few of you were looking forward to, and I'm sure that for many who are fans of the car you've probably done some kind of rally prepped version of one of them at least. Of course it's the Ford Escort RS, the whale tail legend. We used to have an Escort Rally Car in Gran Turismo, and I was going to just replicate that one, but instead I took a slightly different route, because when checking out the liveries it doesn't quite look good enough to me. Because that car, of course, has the slightly revised front end, and it makes a pretty big difference, that different front end. So instead of that, I selected a livery which is a replica of a real car. It's the number 6 Monte Carlo Escort, and what I've done in terms of the spec is basically just cross-referencing the kind of numbers which WRC cars, in effect, would have had at this time. In the case of the Monte Carlo, around 1993. From what I could find, very similar, as you would assume, to the Celica rally car in the game, so 1200 kilos and about 300 or just under horsepower, about 295 in the case of the Celica, if I recall correctly. So that's basically what we're working with here. Of course, we've got dirt tyres fitted, but we'll get to that in a second. As far as the weight, you want your stage 1 weight reduction. Of course, the sports hards are on there anyway. For the club sport stuff, you want your power restrictor, ballast, and of course dirt tyres, or snow, depending on where you're going to take it. For the semi-racing stuff, the fully customised ECU, I've gone for the mid-range turbo, fully customised diff of course. I've gone for the manual transmission, with the full ratios of course. Increase the body rigidity on this one. As far as the racing stuff, we've got the anti-lag. That's down to you, obviously, and I would recommend having it because you don't have to turn it on. You know, you could have it and then you've got the option for the filter, intercooler. Both of those are fitted in race spec as well. The pads, and I've gone for the drilled discs. Like I said before, you could go for the ceramics. I mean, that's not really accurate, but, you know, it's down to you, whichever one you want. The torque vectoring diff, of course, the race clutch and flywheel, fully customised suspension. For the extreme stuff, to the surprise of no one, of course, the steering angle adapter and the hydraulic handbrake for manoeuvrability. And for the ultimate section, nothing. And the point level is, of course, with dirt tyres as well, it does make a difference, but it's quite reasonable. Just under 520 is really not that much for a car which is potentially as quick as this is. Now, of course, to jump into the garage and give you a rundown of the actual spec and what we've done, we've got the dirt tyres fitted, naturally. As far as suspension, a bit of a difference compared to what you might assume, higher on the front than on the back. But if we go back into the menu, it doesn't really look that way. As you can see, it looks pretty much even between the front and the back. So 103 front, 95 rear, 4 on the anti-roll, 25 and 35 for the dampers, 2.45 on the springs. Little bit of a difference between the camber, 0.8 front, 0.5 rear. No toe on the back, and I've towed in 0.10 on the front, of course helps with your turn in into corners. For the diff, triple 10 on the front, triple 30 on the rear, and a 50-50 split on the torque vectoring diff. As far as the transmission, of course it is the manual setup, fairly close ratio-ish, up around, 145, 150-ish miles an hour, at least potentially, with that 240 km an hour auto setting. You could change that though, it's all down to you. We've got the 53 kilo ballast to bring us up to 1200. I've left it on a 56-44 split though. As far as the ECU, the power restrictor, those are untouched. Likewise with the downforce. The anti-lag I've got set on weak, so it's got a little bit of an advantage, but again, that's up to you how much you want. And for all the other stuff here, that is all fitted. So, of course, all that remains is to jump out on the dirt and show you what this thing can do in practice. This one is one of those cars where there's really not a huge amount to say about it. It's just great to use. You immediately get a hang of it. It is an absolute pleasure to drive, which I would argue the Escort used to be as well when we had the rally car. In terms of lap time, this is about on par with the Stratos rally car replica, which I did. So take with that information what you will. Of course, back in the day, that would have never been the case, because rear-wheel drive rally cars had such a disadvantage in the older Gran Turismo games compared to now. So I think that's pretty good, given that they're fairly similar on power. The Stratos was, like 277, I think, but if I recall correctly, a pretty huge weight advantage on that car. So, you know, you've got a weight advantage versus a grip advantage. And in terms of using it, the one piece of advice I would give is, as well as, of course, always using a manual for going off-roading, because it's just an advantage anyway, let the gears run out. So if you're mid-corner, up around the red line, let the gear stay there. Don't change up as soon as you hit the red line, because it will bog down too much, especially because of the mid-range turbo. So I would leave the gear in all the way through the corner, and then once you're out of the corner, then change up into the next gear. Allow the car to do its thing, and it's very good for working with you. So if you decide to use the build, of course I hope you enjoy it. If you want to check out the others from this week, of course they're all out on the channel, and there's only a couple left tomorrow, so stick around for those. Of course I hope you enjoyed the build, give the creator of the livery some love, and for now, thanks for watching.